Hey, what's going on, everybody? Y'all know how we do. Let's get into it. Today's video hopefully is going to be a short one, but it's going to be on contrarians. So let's just get into it. So if you don't know what a contrarian is, it's basically somebody that's like anti. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody that just always takes the other side of the argument, like kind of the devil's advocate. Someone that usually goes against the grain. And my own personal definition is someone that like uses the majority as the basis for their opinion. You know what I'm saying? It's like in saying like, hey, if the majority of people feel this, I'm going to consider that. You know what I'm saying? It's like the majority of people wearing black, I'm going to wear white. You know what I'm saying? In that aspect. And I think it could have some positives and negatives in terms of how we're, kind of engaging today. But I do think I want to concentrate on some of the negatives that are happening right now. And just to get people to think a little bit deeply about it. Because I think we all know people that just are like kind of contrarian for no reason. Like, for example, I'll never understand how, let's say you were born and raised in a city, the sports teams and everything like that. And it's one thing if like you just like another team, right? But it's another thing if you like the rival of the home team. Right? I feel like there is something special about a person who's born and raised in Philly but could love Dallas or, love the Commanders. It's like kind of specific. And to me, it's like almost like an anti. If I kind of chronicle the people in my life that I know that are like that, um, it kind of they mirror each other in certain aspects, right? Um, they definitely are like on that contrarian shit just about a lot of things. It's not just football. It's like they base a lot of their things on what the majority is doing, and then like they form their opinion on like a minority situation, right? And so I want to kind of take that and apply it to politics, because I feel like, particularly, I'm going to talk about our black and brown communities, that there seems to be a large faction that loves to be contrarian, that loves to like say, well, hey, the majority of black people, the majority of brown people are doing this, so I'm going to do that. I don't want to be like the typical black person. You know what I'm saying? It's what Republicans use to try and, break our unity and say like, oh, the Democratic Party, it's like blacks just vote in mass for it and they just take advantage of it. Like it's not benefiting them, everything like that. And you actually have some people that like base it on that. Like, hey, well, the majority of black people are voting Democrat. I'm not going to do that, because I'm different. I'm a free thinker. I'm a do all this shit. And what I'm subscribing is that like there are positives and negatives to it because one, we never just want to be blind sheep, right? We never want to be just blind sheep that are just going with tradition, going what our mama has said, going what people are telling us. Like, not at all. I feel like we all need to be stewards and scholars and really investigate and learn all sides of things, right? But what I am saying is that like you shouldn't let what the majority or minority think guide what you're thinking, because you're just as much of a poser if you're not going with the majority just based on what the majority says, right? What's the difference from you saying like, hey, I'm just going with the majority, or I'm going with the opposite of what the majority says? You are still allowing the majority to determine what you're doing regardless of what side of the coin that you're on, right? The only way to really have that critical thought is to actually like think about all scenarios, be objective. You know what I'm saying? To not view it in a polar way. Don't view it like, the Eagles versus Dallas. Like, look at it in terms of the whole NFL, why you potentially might like another team, as opposed to allowing the framing of what everyone else is doing, frame it in a positive or negative fashion. You feel me? And so I feel like these arguments politically, as I'm trying to break it up, it's like we have a lot of contrarians out here. You know what I'm saying? That are just like ignoring what ICE is doing, like ignoring the fact that the Republican Party is like literally fighting against the Civil Rights Act, like literally actively today fighting against every protection of the Civil Rights Act. They're tearing down black monuments. They're tearing down black history. They're doing all these things, but yet you still have some black people that are like turning a blind eye to these things and sort of still talking about all the ills of the Democratic Party and all the ill, like what's happening, blah blah blah. And it's just like, yo, can we see what's happening here? Can we acknowledge that the Civil Rights Act was good for black people? Or are you contrarian on that one and saying like, hey, it actually wasn't? But I just feel like we just need to be more critical thinkers and start thinking inductively and not deductively. And that's a whole nother topic. I spoke on it before, but I'll bring it into light for another future topic. But like inductively basically means just like taking everything around you and evaluating. And deductive reasoning is kind of like forming your own hypothesis first and then trying to prove that right with facts. And I feel like that is what we do in our society, how we're taught to that hypothesis forming and to validating our own bias. I think that is part of the issue. We need to get away from that and start looking at the facts and allowing them to determine what our hypothesis would be, as opposed to like, elevating ourselves for whatever bias and motivation that we have to form a hypothesis and then try to prove it. Deductive reasoning is how racism exists, right? If you look at all the objective facts, racism doesn't exist because race is not even a thing. If you really want to go into science, like it makes absolutely no scientific classification sense. All scientists know it, but yet we still use it. Why? Because it advantages a certain people. White supremacy can't exist if white doesn't exist. And white doesn't exist unless black exists, right? In this whole racial structure. So it really feeds itself. The ignorance feeds itself. But I digress. I'm just saying that, like, let's stop being contrarians, right? Let's actually be inductive in our reasoning, looking at all the facts and thoughts, and be able to say that, hey, sometimes the majority is right. Sometimes the majority is right and it's not a problem to stand with them. But also, sometimes the majority can be wrong. And it's pretty good to be able to have some critical thinking to be able to base that on yourself. But what you can't do is base your critical thinking based on what the majority is thinking, right? Because that makes you no different than them. So hopefully it was a good little talk. Until next time.